Hello, this is Jefferson Aldridge from givingisgood.org. Today we've got some special guests. We have Jack Fanning and Bill Fanning. Jack Fanning, rocking the super chair. I think it's probably kind of a cool word.
The power chair.
The power chair, the seat of power. And his father, Bill, they run an organization specifically designed for veterans, wounded veterans. Would you say specifically going to help wounded veterans and their families?
Yes, any wounded veteran, not necessarily in combat either. Okay. Just any veteran and their family that are struggling or need any kind of help, or that could benefit from what we do, which is retreats. But
yeah.
And Gold Star families, first responders and their families.
So they have been running an organization since 2012, right? Called Brothers Keepers, and you can find them at brothers-keepers.org. So I found out about them, and I watched the video about Jack on the main page, and it's just phenomenal. So Jack's an inspiration. He is doing something that most people going through what he's gone through in his life, they wouldn't dare or dream of doing the things that he does at this point in his life, and how he inspires others, and what their 501c3 is doing for veterans, what they're going to keep doing. And he's going to tell us a little bit about how he got here. He's going to tell us a little bit about what he sees coming in the future, what they're doing for the families now, and then we'll kind of bring that all back together about how people can jump in and help and become a part of Brothers Keepers to help you push your mission and to help more families do what you're doing. We've been sitting here kind of talking and getting to know each other a little bit more, and the stories are just amazing. And when you go to their main page and watch Jack jump out of a helicopter, it's totally worth it. Just setting the stage for some of the things that he does and what him and his family. And if you'll notice on Bill's name tag, it says the A-Team. It takes a team to do what they do, and as a family they come together and accomplish a lot, and they inspire a lot. So I really we're going to jump in, have Jack and Bill start telling us about, walk us through the evolution of Brothers Keepers. We can start with how you got there. We can start with you tell me where you want it. It's all awesome. So yeah.
So the old man here on the part of the A-Team.
That's the advanced team, Jack, not the old-timers team.
Right. It's getting that way. No, he was in the Air Force for 20 years, and so we were overseas, and we did a little bit of Italy and the Philippines, and all. And I was born in Germany, Wiesbaden, Germany, at the time, and then we went to the Philippines, and then when I was 5 years old, he got stationed, his last duty station at Carswell Air Force Base.
Welcome to Texas.
In Fort Worth, Texas. So when I was 5 years old, I got to, do the Texas thing, and I immediately became a Texan, and we loved it, and he ended up retiring here, and he went right into General Dynamics, which is now Lockheed. Yep. And so from there, I pretty much grew up. We stayed here. So I grew up, went in Fort Worth, and went to high school, and I have always been very athletic. So at a young age, I started on a soccer team, and I stayed on that same team, Fort Worth United, for 9 years?
Right.
And it was all the same guys, so we all grew up, together on that team, and we traveled, we went overseas and played. We were pretty damn good too.
Yeah.
It was a select soccer team. So the coach that we had hired went around to all of the teams in Fort Worth and selected the best of the best to put together a classic soccer team. So all the kids were 10 years old. And Jack was one of the superstars that was selected. They were all superstars on that team. The coach, though, didn't like the fact that Jack raced motorcycles at 10 years old. So that always was a little bit of a problem. But we traveled all over the United States, winning tournaments. We even took the team to Europe. We played in the Gothia Cup and the Dana Cup. And Fort Worth United was one of the, well, Jack can tell a story about the team that actually beat us. We ended up in 4th or 5th place in one of the tournaments and 3rd in the other tournaments, and these are big tournaments. In the United States, you might have 6 or 7 teams in each age group. Over there, you have 100 teams in a particular age group, and Jack can tell a funny story about, I don't know if you want to tell that about the team that beat you guys?
The Dana Cup in Denmark, and then the Gothia Cup, which was Sweden.
In
right?
Sweden, right.
And in both tournaments, you know, we got to the quarterfinals and semifinals, but we ended up playing the Iraq national team.
Wow.
And so in the first, and these guys were awesome. But we got to, and we're like 15 years old. We got to looking at their team right before the game. We're like, 3/4 of these guys have full beards. Like, what is going on?
They're not exactly 10.
And
No,
wives
they-
and kids.
They were not, I think they had doctored their passports a little bit. And there was a lot of complaints from the other teams at that time. Hey, these guys are older than 15. And come to find out, because we were winning and they were freaking out. I mean, and there's a lot of people at these games. And the ball would get kicked out of bounds and you'd see guys in business suits hauling ass, or excuse me.
It's okay.
I can cuss?
Yeah.
Okay, good, and they're run and get the ball and hurry up and get it back in play.
Yeah.
And they ended up coming back and beating us, but, and we're like, what's going on here? Well, Saddam Hussein's son, Uday Hussein, was on that team.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was playing against Uday Hussein,
Wow.
the infamous, he was a brutal guy. And fast forward about, 15, 17 years fast forward, and we're hunting Uday and Qusay and Saddam in Iraq.
And one of your tours in Iraq.
Yeah, so pretty crazy that we were playing against. But both tournaments, they ended up knocking us out of the tournament.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I didn't know it, but one day I'd be hunting that son of a gun.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild, but yeah, so did the soccer thing, and like Dad was saying, I'd raced motorcycles ever since I could remember. You know, that was one of the big Christmas presents he got me and my brother when we were very young, and I took to it, and so
Loved it.
my soccer coach did not like it too much, you know,
Adrenaline, danger.
because the crashes were pretty intense. So like I said, I was athletic, and I did that kind of stuff throughout my adolescence, and then graduated high school, got a soccer scholarship to a school out in Shreveport, you know, smaller school, Centenary, and ended up blowing that because I didn't have my priorities right at the time.
Yeah.
And I did really good on the team, but it kind of helps if you go to school, go to class, you know.
Imagine that.
And so,
Won all kinds of soccer games.
yeah,
You can't get real good grades based on that.
When you're partying
But-
at Rockstar in college.
But Dad had given me a Jeep in high school. I was doing really good in my grades and with athletics. And then he taught me a good lesson after I flunked out of college. He's like, give me the keys to your Jeep, get you a job, and get your own damn Jeep. An apartment and everything else. And that's what I did. And then I started getting into that groove, you know. And where I was just, you know, getting sick and tired of being sick and tired and getting in that rut and getting in debt and you know, going through my early 20s. And then one day I just got tired of it. You know, I started doing construction, and I did that for about 5 years, right? It was kind of cool because I was a glazer, and we were installing like glass in high-rise buildings, like in downtown Dallas.
More
Adrenaline
and
yeah,
fire.
so now the adrenaline thing is back in play.
Right.
And I'm on the side of a building on what they call a stage, with a motor on each end and installing, you know, 400-pound pieces of glass. It was pretty intense. But one day I was just like, man, I'm done with all this. I need to get out of here. And I was like, Dad, what do you think, you know, about joining the Air Force? Because he was in the Air Force, and so that was my inspiration. And so I went and signed up, and I thought I was gonna go into the missile realm of things and work on missiles, probably in Minot, North Dakota, of all places. But when I got to basic, now I was 26 at the time, so I'm pretty old for, you know,
Late.
most of the guys are, you know, 18, young kids, so that immediately started calling me Old Man Fanning. And
Eventually they called him Old Man High Speed
yeah,
because he was fast.
and I could keep up with them young punks because, you know, playing soccer my whole life, and I was in pretty good shape. Went into basic, and I had no idea that special operations were even in the Air Force. I didn't know, you know, everybody knows the Green Berets, the SEALs, all that stuff, force
I didn't know
recon.
until you told me today.
Yeah, it's very,
They're very
it's a very small
close-lipped about
community.
PJs
There's
and CCTs.
just a few hundred of you know, pararescue, you might have heard of that, but combat control was what I did. But anyway, I was going through basic training, and we were doing a normal class, and in through the door, busted through the door this burly chested guy, big guy, and he's like, hey, I'm here to ask you guys to try out for combat control or pararescue. And he popped in this video, and immediately one of the first things I saw is guys on motorcycles and quads, you know, four-wheelers, and jumping out of planes, and scuba diving, and calling in close air support, stuff like that. And I was like, whoa, okay. And he was like, this is voluntary only. Who wants to tomorrow show up and do a PT test? Boom, I raised my hand. This is for me. And then
You basically said put me in, coach.
yeah, put me in, man. This is, and I was like, now we're talking, because now I really got excited. And then I think that next morning or something, they let us have our, you know, 5 minutes phone call, and I called Dad, and I was like, hey, I got a question. This is voluntary only, and they're asking if we want to do this. There's special operations in the Air Force. Should I try out?
Well, he was so excited. You could just tell this was unbelievable. I said, well, Jack, what's it all about? And he goes, Hell, I don't know. Guys were jumping out of airplanes with motorcycles and guns. I think I should do this. And of course, I told him, whatever you think is right, go for it. You know, whatever this thing is. And so he finished his basic training. And during the graduation ceremony, I noticed he had 2 stripes already, graduating from basic. So I said, how come you have 2 stripes already? When I was in the Air Force, it took years before you'd get a second stripe. He says, well, in today's world, Dad, depending on the career field you go in, they give you 1 or 2 stripes. He said, this is a pretty tough field. Well, man, this ought to be fun. Go for it.
How many people tried out for that? They told me this stat. Y'all need to hear this. How many people tried out for it, and how many made it?
So it's called, back then, it's changed now, but back then it was called INDOC. Okay. Basically, indoctrination was the first portion. It's a 2-year pipeline is what they call it, of just school. But you have to get whipped into shape, and basically it's a pre-scuba is what it is. So the first school you go off to, other than this INDOC school, which is 10 weeks, is combat dive school. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the hardest schools in the military. I think we started out with like 97 in my particular class. Mm-hmm. And ended up graduating just from that 10-week course. There was like 15 of us. Mm-hmm. And then if you fast forward through all combat control school, static line jump school, military free fall school, combat dive school, air traffic control school, we're air traffic controllers, survival, all these schools, a 2-year period. There was 4 of us
that made it through out of all the people that started.
Right.
Wow.
4 remaining. And that last school, combat control school, which is like 3 months long, and they teach you the basics of all the tactics, techniques, and procedures about your job. Yeah. And there was 4 of us and a lot of instructors. So that sucked. Because you couldn't get away with any kind of scurvy.
20 people looking at you, and there's just 4 of you guys learning.
4 instructors on each guy. So made it through the whole pipeline and became a combat controller. Got my red beret, scarlet beret is what they call it. And I went to Hurlburt Field, Florida. Got stationed down there, and I spent 6.5 years down there. And so that was just a few years before 9/11. Of course, I think I got there at the end of 98, 99. And so our area of operations, our AO, if you will, was South America. Okay. And I did a lot of rotations or deployments to Puerto Rico with Green Beret 7th Group guys. Mm-hmm. And we would train down there and be prepared to launch into South America. So we'd stay there for 3 months. And then I did some actual stuff in South America, deployments, doing counter-drug missions, and then so did the Colombia thing, and then I was actually in Bolivia doing another mission when 9/11 hit. Okay. So I was sitting in La Paz, Bolivia, at 12,000 feet. That was the elevation of that place. It was crazy. Yeah. You would walk to the market and be smoked because you.
Sure, there's no oxygen. Yeah.
But so, yeah, they attacked the Twin Towers when I was in Bolivia, and so obviously they froze up the international flights. So took me a week and a half, couple weeks to get back to Florida, and then we were spinning up and off we went to Afghanistan. Actually K2, right above Afghanistan,
Okay.
up in the Russian province, areas.
And you did how many tours in Afghanistan during your stint there until what, about 2010?
So we started hitting Afghanistan hard. I ended up doing 5 tours,
Okay.
basically back to back to back,
Yeah.
not much time off. 5 tours in Afghanistan as a combat controller, and mostly we would be attached to ODA teams, Green Beret teams, as a single combat controller, and we'd be the air to interface for those guys, meaning since we were air traffic controllers and experts in close air support, anything flying, we're doing what we're doing with that team on the ground. And then anything flying, I'm responsible for. So I've got multiple radios, and I'm talking to the helos, the fast movers, the bombers, what have you. And then when it would hit the fan, so to speak, I'd have to do my thing and call in the airstrikes.
Yeah.
And
There was a lot of
and that became the big thing over there is the airstrike capabilities that we brought to the fight. Was crucial. And so we started beating down the Taliban with the Northern Alliance and beating them down from, south, and did a lot of good things over there. Saw a lot of bad stuff too, along the way. A lot of my friends died, and it got very personal for me and all my buddies, but it just became what you did. We would deploy, come home, train a little bit, deploy again, and we just kept doing it. And then, the Iraq thing came up, and I did the initial invasion of Iraq in '03, so I did that as well, and then went back to Afghanistan. But so I did 1 tour in Iraq and 5 in Afghanistan. And then they voluntold me to, hey, you're gonna be an instructor. You've done quite a few tours. You got a lot of experience. You're done for now. You go to North Carolina. So I went to Pope Air Force Base, right there around Bragg, and that's where Combat Control School is located, where back in the 90s I had gone through myself that 3-month course where they beat up on me pretty good, and so now I get paybacks.
Now you're on the other side of it.
I'm on the other side, and I got to beat down some kids, but I
Train them efficiently, right? Train them efficiently.
initially when they, told, me and my family that you're going to North Carolina to be an instructor, we're scratching and crawling to stay at Hurlburt Field because that's right in the Panhandle, right by Destin, Florida. I mean, it's like a vacation spot. So we're like, no, we don't want to go, because it was a lot of fun down there, And I ended up loving it, being an instructor. I didn't think that I would, but it was one of the cooler things I did, because I got to pass on my knowledge to the younger generation and teach them my skills. And I was fortunate enough to get the tactics block of instruction, so I got to teach them how to shoot, move, and communicate, and do what we do. And it was a lot of fun. It was very gratifying.
Well, you had a lot of experience. So
Yes, sir.
bringing
Yeah.
that experience to those young men and women that are getting ready to, start that part of their career, that's got to
Yeah.
be pretty invaluable.
Yeah. How many did you train, Jack?
200 and something kids probably over a 3.5 year period. And then I was itching to get back in the fight. I'm not gonna lie.
Because you were an operator.
I liked to operate over there, and I liked deploying and serving my country in the best capacity I could, which was killing bad guys, you know. That's what I wanted to do. And they certainly deserved it. And so I was wanting to get back in the fight, and the next step progression for me, and you're right there at Bragg, was JSOC, which is the Tier 1 guys. So you're talking Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, and then you have the 2-4, which is the Air Force side of all that. Okay. And so what I would do at the Tier 2 level with your SEAL teams and Green Beret teams before out of Herbert, now you're doing the same thing but at the Tier 1 level. So we would get attached to the Team 6 or Delta guys, doing the same air-to-ground interface for them, but you're looking for very, very high value targets.
Right.
You know,
Like
the high, you know,
Hussein.
Osama bin Laden,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that type of thing, and hostage rescue, and you're working directly under the president and the Secretary of Defense for those guys. So it's a big deal. So I got assessed and made it onto what they call Green Team, and spent a few months there before Green Team. Then Green Team kicked off, and it's basically, you know, 8-month course where they train you. They take all these experienced guys. They only accept experienced guys that are, you know, pretty squared away, and they kick the shit out of you in a good way, and then they teach you things that you had no idea. You know, I was like, wow, they do some cool stuff up here. Yeah. But so the tactics and techniques that they use up there are pretty neat. And so I was going through that course, got right to the end of it, and this is one of our last little mission sets. It was going to be a 2-week mission, loading on a C-17 at a Pope, jumping into New Mexico, White Sands area, jump in with the team using an infill called a HALO. Usually it's HALO, high altitude low opening. In this case, it's high altitude high opening, so HALO. And we're gonna set up a DLS, a desert landing strip, and then land those C-17s with assault vehicles, jump on the assault vehicles, go up in the mountains and do some other missions. And you do that all with a small team. So on a HALO, you typically offset of the target area quite a few miles, just so they don't, and you're in the middle of the night using the darkness to your advantage. Yeah. You're on night vision, and you're offset of the target, and you jump at a very high altitude, and the whole team exits, and you immediately pull your chute. Instead of flying down and pulling your chute, you pull it very high, get into a formation, and you fly. Sometimes it takes quite a bit of flying time. In a formation, talking on the radio, and you have GPS, just like my tray here. There's a tray on your chest, and you flop it down. It's got, you know, a map, compass, GPS on there, and we fly close to the target area, land, cache your chutes, and then you go to work. Okay. So my night vision goggles, whenever I pulled my ripcord, came off my helmet, and they're dummy corded, of course, because we dummy cord everything. But it came dislodged and it was dangling down by my like chin area. And so I didn't panic. I had hundreds of jumps under me, under my belt. So I was cool. I was like, all right, you couldn't see much without your night vision because there wasn't much moonlight. And we did that intentionally for training purposes. But so I would let go of my steering toggles, grab the night vision goggles, put them up to my eyes, find the stack. The stack is the team parachutes, the guys, you know. And I wanted to kind of steer clear of them. I didn't want to run into them and take somebody else out. So then I would let go of the night vision goggles, grab the steering toggles again, and just keep myself close to the stack, but not close enough where I didn't want to get in formation and then run into anybody. And I kept having to do that back and forth. And I probably grabbed my goggles and looked at them, 50 times on the way down. And I thought everything was okay, but with the conditions and me not having my night vision, I ended up, I thought I was a couple 100 feet up, so I was getting ready to release my rucksack. And it's a front mounted. And you pull these lanyards and it releases and it's on like an 8-foot, rope or lanyard, if you will. And then you hear the rucksack hit and then you flare. And, you can still...
Well, you're almost there at the bottom and you flare out and you land
you
nice
hear the
and soft.
boom and then if you can't see, you just flare when you hear it. Yeah. Well, that's how it's supposed to go. When I was actually about 10 feet in the air, and so I've let go of the steering toggles. I'm going full speed, and I go to release my ruck. When I pulled the ruck to release, boom! I just smacked the ground. Full speed, probably 35 knots. Wasn't much wind that night, so canopies are cruising pretty good. And it just flipped me perfectly forward. And with that ruck, I just kind of flipped and my head got depressed into my body at full speed, and it took me down to the C3, overlapped over my C4 in my neck, and instantly I was paralyzed from the neck down. Now we talk with these little push-to-talks to communicate. As soon as you hit the ground, you check into the team leader and you make sure that you're okay. So the first guy will say, 1's up, and the second guy, 2's up, 3's up, 4's up. I think I was number 6 in the stick. When it got to 6, I didn't roger up because I couldn't move. It blew everything off my helmet. Chin strap was choking me out. Right lung was collapsed. Instantly paralyzed, couldn't talk to anybody. I could hear everybody chattering. After a certain amount of time goes by, they go on to the next guy and the next guy. So they knew something was up. Right. And another guy broke his leg on that same jump. That's how gnarly the conditions were. But so that I could hear him looking for me, and I'm laying there. And I'm pretty much dying. I can't breathe, so I'm doing this, just trying to get any kind of oxygen. Trying to survive. And when somebody gets paralyzed, especially at a high level, it's hard to work your diaphragm. And a lot of people will pass away right then. And so I laid there, and I'm just like, breathe. And all those years of combat and all that training I had gave me the fortitude, that inner strength to muster up just to keep breathing, man. Because, I had a wife and kid that I had to live for. My son was 4 at the time. Yeah. His name's Brock. And I was like, I am not dying today. But I felt myself going, and more minutes were going by. 5, 10, we're at 15 minutes or so. And I'm like, you know, if now's the time, then it's the time. But I don't want to go. And, you know, so that's when I asked God, you know. My best friend Jason was right behind me in the stick order, in the jump order. I said, please let Jason find me, you know, so I can live, because I was just about to go. And I asked God to do that for me. And not 2 or 3 minutes later, guess who came up on me? You know, and that's a little God wink for you. Yeah. The other one is when my helmet hit, you know, the strobe flew off my helmet, an IR strobe that you could see with night vision, and it was turned on. And so he saw that strobe flashing.
So when it hit, it turned on by
yeah.
itself. You didn't do it. As normally you would turn it on.
Right.
Right?
You only turn it on if there's an emergency or for a specific reason.
And it kicked on itself.
Right.
He saw that and came and he found me. And, you know, I think at that time, you know, God let me survive and put me in this situation. I didn't know it at the time, for a reason. And, you know, so they, you know, ripped everything off me, and my lung was collapsed, and my sat, you know, the oxygen levels, I mean, I just couldn't breathe. And so they called for a medevac. And then in the helicopter, I had to get a chest tube and save my life. They saved me multiple times. And then, you know, the struggle began, and my whole life was flipped upside down. Right. And, you know, because I was like, man, I'm about to get on the teams and deploy again and, you know, go hunt down the bad guys and do what I do, what I love to do. And like, nope, your life's going to go in a whole different direction. And, you know, woke up in the hospital and tubes sticking out of everywhere. It was a nightmare, man. At one point, I mean, I was so drugged up, I thought I was captured, being tortured and stuff. But so I had to, and then at that unit, man, they took care of me. They sent me to a really nice place in Atlanta called the Shepherd Center for my recovery process, which was going to be a long recovery. And you start rehabbing. They start teaching you how to live. At first, I was on a ventilator, so I couldn't even breathe by myself. Had to have a machine help me. That was probably one of the worst things I've ever been through. And so me being me, hard-headed, stubborn, I was like, what does it take to get off of this damn ventilator? I was asking the doctor, and you can tell him about that.
I was there when the doctor was, the doctor didn't know, but this is one hard-charging guy. He's always been like that. So here he is, he's got all these tubes. It's been a month or so since his injury, and the doctor is trying to convince Jack that this is going to take months and months. You know, you just can't get off of this thing. And Jack would say, no, you don't understand. This is me. I don't do this. I don't take months to do stuff. And the doctor is trying to deal with the patient and telling him that just calm down, Jack. You're going to have this thing for months and months and months. And Jack, it was just a riot. He says, you got a machine there with all these numbers and dials and all kinds of digital equipment and stuff. He says, what number do I need to focus on? And the guy says, no, you don't have to worry about that. And he says, no, what number do I need to focus on? I want this son of a bitch off.
Give me a goal.
And right,
Yep.
exactly.
He said,
And
when you get to 10,
so he says
10%.
So the doctor says, this number here in red, and it was 90 something. And he said, when you get it to 10, then we can take it out. And he says, okay, turn it down to 50%.
yeah, they would only let me turn it down so much, but I'm like,
Little bit
turn
each
it
day.
down, you know,
Jack says.
20% or whatever. And so and I would finally convince them to turn it down. And they, man, that's too soon or too much. And then I'd do it, it would kill me. You know, and I'd be just done for like a day, just wiped out. And then I'd go right back at it. Turn it down again. Turn it down again.
Forcing your body to
And
relearn.
I got off of that thing in like a month and a half or 2 months, and they couldn't believe it. Well,
No, I
the
think it was
doctors
shorter than
and the
that.
whole
I think
crew.
it was 30 days. They passed all the tests. Nurses came in, you know, and they would do it. It was a real struggle that whole time.
I had to
Shepherd.
learn how to talk, how to eat, you know, swallow, you know.
You're relearning to live at a different
and
level.
then-
They didn't know Jack. And when Jack tells that story, he says, they just didn't know me. I'm not going to take 90 days. If it takes an average person 6 months, I'm going to do it in one. And that's just the way he's always been.
That was the only way I knew how. Like, I could sit there and feel sorry for myself because, I mean, it sucked, that whole situation. I went from a hard charging 150% adrenaline junkie to you can't move.
Yeah.
You know? And I didn't like that. I did not like, I mean, it was crazy how that makes you feel. And so I just hard charged it and went at it. And, you know, they teach you how to live and how to bathe and how to go to the bathroom. And you need help from here on out for the rest of your life, you know. And so then I got out of the hospital, finally, you know, and then I had to go to the VA in Dallas. I relocated while I was in the hospital, sold the house in North Carolina, got out of the unit, and then all my family was still back here in Fort Worth, Texas. So relocated, had to do like 4 months at the Dallas VA to get all my benefits. And so I did that. And then when I finally got released and got a place, then it really hit me. You know, I'm not doing the same thing I was doing. I didn't have that team. And so the depression starts hitting in. And then anger was a big one for me. I was pissed. And I think God put me in the chair to finally realize, hey, your mission is not this anymore. It's just we're gonna redirect it to help others. But somebody had put a shooting apparatus on my chair. So they give me all this gadgets, and I work my chair with my breath now. It's called a sip and puff. So I blow to go right, sip to go left, blow hard to go forward, and then I met another quad in Atlanta that has these sticks, and this is what I tap to use the phone and iPad. Well, I started figuring out all this stuff that I could still live and control was a big thing. Like having no control was really brutal in my mind.
Right.
And so these little things were little victories for me. Being able to work a phone with a mouth stick.
You're gaining more control.
Yeah,
You're gaining
work
your
the
freedom
TV through my iPad.
Yeah.
Little things, and then somebody gave me a shooting apparatus for my chair, and I'm able to shoot with my mouth now.
And go hunting.
And then I went hunting, and I killed my first animal. I'd never been hunting really for big game until after I got hurt. And I was like, whoa, this is cool. And then my family and me got invited to go scuba diving in Key West through a third group Green Beret outfit that was called, what's it called?
Dagger.
You might know these guys. That's something we'll have to edit, but
Dagger Force Dagger, something like that.
Anyway, I went to Key West and went scuba diving with the whole family. And then, and it was amazing. And I was like, man, I'm living. I can live like this, I think. And but I was still struggling at the time. But so it took a couple years, and finally, like, man, as I was doing some of these cool things, a lot of other veterans were like, man, you're very inspiring, Jack. I can't believe you can go hunting and you can't even move from the neck down. And I was hitting therapy hard, and I was starting to live a little bit. And I started realizing I could help other veterans that maybe are been blown up by an IED, missing limbs, or in a chair, or PTSD, whatever the case.
Because you weren't giving up.
No,
you were out there living still, regardless.
Yeah,
nothing was stopping you.
I'm gonna live, and I'm gonna press forward and do this thing. And
is that what led
get busy living or get busy dying?
Talk about the dinner that you had with your high school friends and how all of the Brothers Keepers.
Yeah, so
things
right after high school, we had a group of friends that we would do like a monthly dinner where we'd dress up and go have like a semi-fancy dinner, and we would chip in what we had for some kind of charity, and it might only be $5-10. We didn't have much money at the time, but we would do that and do something nice for somebody else. And then I ended up going in the service, but when I got back, all the guys, we were like, hey, let's get the group together again, and let's go do one of these dinner nights, and we could chip in and to a food bank or whatever the case may be. And we were doing it one night, and we had like a booze wagon that we're all gonna pitch in $20, and see who gets it. And then this table of a couple ladies saw us, and they're like, what do y'all got going on? I'm like, hey, sorry, we're being a little rowdy. We're a little rowdy group, but we're just chipping in to help out a cause, And they're like, hey, well, we'll chip in. And they ended up writing us like a check for $100 or something. And then other people in the restaurant started doing the same thing. And we ended up raising like $1,200 or something.
Just sitting there at dinner.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was amazing. And then me and a couple of my good buddies that I've known forever, we were like, hey man, we might have something here. We don't exactly know what we're doing, but let's start a nonprofit and let's give back, or in some fashion, let's help veterans and first responders. Right. And Gold Star members. And so we came up with the name Brothers Keepers. And we didn't know what we were doing, but we dove in, and that was back in 2012. two years after I was hurt. And we knew that I could inspire people. So then we got the idea of let's do a retreat. Because I met this guy, Mr. Rains, just a phenomenal person. He was a Vietnam veteran, and he had a big ranch down by Junction, Texas. And you could shoot, and he had cool cabins and hang out around the fire pit and pick on a guitar, you know, and just hang out with,
get away,
hang out with veterans and their families and stuff like that. And yeah, get away and hunt or something like that. He had let me hunt and killed a beautiful South African lechwe. And you know, he's like, no charge. We'll process the meat, give it to you, and then I'll give you the mount. And I'm like, wow, man, this is crazy.
He wanted to give back.
He did,
right?
And that's why he has that place. He gives back. Lets us go down there whenever we want. Yeah. Well, you know, we got this Brothers Keepers thing going, and he's like, hey, why don't you have a big retreat down here and invite a bunch of families? We're like, that'd be amazing. And so,
would you say that y'all's focus on families is different than some of the other military veteran organizations? Because y'all do some special things for families that a lot of people will focus on the veterans, but not everybody focuses on the families. Would you say that's fairly
Families
accurate?
are very, very, very important to us. That's probably our number one focus. There are a lot of outfits that will help the veteran that's wounded or the first responder. They'll take them on hunting trips, fishing trips. They'll do all kinds of things, but the rest of the family stays home. And we're not all about that. We, Jack, will find the individual, male or female, from any of the services or first responder, Gold Star families, etc. And he'll find them. And then what we do is we take the entire family on a retreat. We've been growing for years and years now. It was difficult in the beginning to find these people, but now we've helped over 200 families. We actually do 2 retreats in Utah. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how did we come across Utah?
Well, I'll just tell you, when a veteran or first responder gets injured or blown up or, you know, whatever the case may be, it's not just that person that you know, gets hurt. It's the entire family. It's your whole circle of family and friends, and it devastates them. Yeah. And you don't necessarily know how to deal with it. I went through a divorce. You know, we didn't know how to handle it, and it happened. You know, it is what it is. So it's not just that veteran that gets injured. It's the entire family that feels that. So we like to focus on the family aspect. So when we take you on a retreat, you're taking your spouse and your kids. We love that, and we want. So if we go skiing in Utah on the mountains of Park City, we want your little 5-year-old and 10-year-old kids to be skiing right there with you. If you got legs or not, or you're in a chair, they can get you down the mountain with your family. That's right. And that is amazing. So like Dad was saying, we started out with that ranch retreat, the Granite Ranch retreat. Now it's turned in, we've grown. Now we're up to 3 retreats a year. So, and we bring multiple families. And we found an outfit up in Park City, Utah called the National Ability Center. And they're a nonprofit, and they do this year round, not just with veteran outfits, with anybody that's disabled. Okay. That's what they do. So there's a lot of activities to do around there. Okay. Very mountainous area. And in the winter, they focus on snow skiing and stuff like that. But there's rock climbing and you name it. So I had hooked up with Vivint. They had done my house, made it into like a smart home, if you will. And they're pretty cool. That their headquarters is in around Park City, and they flew me up there to do an event, and that's how I got linked up with the national. They're like, you should go visit the National Ability Center. They do some pretty cool things for people that are disabled, and we popped in there and talked to a couple of people, and they're like, hey, we're looking for a veterans group. And I'm like, wow, this was meant to be. This is a little God wink here.
You said, hey, I've got one.
And they have the instructors and the equipment, the adaptive equipment to get anybody doing water skiing to snow skiing. Doesn't matter what the disability. So, and they're like, we're looking for a group. And I'm like, we're in. So we started going up there just for one time a year doing the snow skiing part of it. And it's amazing. We bring 35 to 40 folks up there, multiple families, and watching them snow ski down the mountains of Utah with their families.
It's amazing.
Is amazing. And then here's the cool part is you're on a trip with 8 other families, and they have not necessarily the same struggles as you or the same injuries as you, but they all connect and they all relate
And they're finding
because
some
they are
happiness.
struggling. And
Right.
the spouses
Yeah.
can talk, the kids can talk,
Yeah.
and they figure out, hey, we're kind of similar.
Yeah.
And then they get real tight, and then they start opening up. And we see this over this 4 or 5 day process, and it's pretty neat. By the end of it, we're hugging, we're laughing, we're crying, we're giving each other hell. And there's a healing process in that retreat and over the course of those few days that we're there. And by the end, we are family. And we brought them into the Brothers Keepers family.
Is Brothers Keepers, as you're bringing those families together and focusing on healing, giving them some fun, some happiness, putting together these events, I mean, that's really what you're trying to do, is bring them together to create a family so that they can all go through the struggles and talk about it, and which produces healing in the end.
Yeah.
That's right. It's all about healing those individuals and the families as a group.
Yeah.
They start realizing that their life is not over, that they can do anything they want to.
Let's have some
as
fun.
As long as they
We like
put
to have
their
fun.
mind
Let's
to it.
live.
Yeah,
And
we're not there to, you got issues, let's hear your issue. No, we're going to get after it, climb that freaking rock right there, harness up, get your 5-year-old up there. When they see their 5-year-old climb
up the side
and
of
ring the bell,
a climbing
and,
wall.
and then they get to see Daddy do it, that only has one leg, and I mean, tears are flowing. But we like to have fun and clown around. But by the end, you've become so tight that they're like, wow, we're going to know these people, these families forever. And they will always stay in contact with those specific families and us. And then as we've gone through the years, and now we do a summer retreat at Utah, that same place. And then we do the ranch. And we like to bring the people that we've taken to Utah down to the ranch. So now there's even more familiar faces when they show up to the ranch. Hey, and so we stay connected with these families. And that's the neat part of it. It's just amazing.
Would you say that people that wanted to get involved with Brothers Keepers can obviously money. Money's always a good resource, because the more money you have, the more of the retreat aspect you can put together, the more families you can help, right? But I'm assuming you probably could use more people who have resources like that type of an event atmosphere, if they could donate those kind of spaces, like the guy who's donating his ranch, to bring in 5 or 6 or 10 families at a time, and they are bringing together veterans families for healing, for happiness, and that type of resource it's not easy to find. Not everybody says, sure, bring a bunch of people over and let's, stay here for a week, and, that's not what people want to do, right? But there are people that will, if they know that, it's going to really benefit some people, right? And that's
Right. So funding is always a hard part. Obviously, when, that's tough. So what we like to do and put out there for organizations or just people that want to give that don't necessarily know where to give. Well, what you can do for us is you could sponsor or pay for a family to attend.
okay.
So you're sponsoring a family. You're not just giving us money, here's
Sponsor a
here's a
specific
group
family.
and now there's a face
Yeah.
and there's names of you're sponsoring this guy and his wife and this many kids. Here they are, here's his bio. This is what happened to them. And they live right here, it could be in the community or in another state, but that, wow, I just paid for this family to go do this ski.
Something they couldn't do.
That they didn't know and
Right.
couldn't imagine
Right.
that they would be doing.
Yeah.
And it might have enlightened them or turned their life around in such a positive way, or it helped them in some capacity at least. Yeah. And you feel good about that, because a lot of people want to give. They just don't know where to give or how to help. And we're the perfect small organization right here out of Fort Worth. Yep. None of us get paid. We're all volunteers,
Even Jack.
Right.
That's right.
And Dad.
Right.
All of us.
Right. We're all
You know,
volunteers.
we're a very small group, but I think the impact that we make on the community, and I'll help anybody from any state in the country, but we try to focus on the community. But how I find the veterans and first responders and stuff and Gold Star members is word of mouth. The people I bring on a retreat, at the end of it, when we're laughing and crying and saying goodbye, I say, hey, who do you guys know? Because I know they know people, because I know a lot of guys from serving that are busted up and could use a retreat that you just experienced.
They
Let
need
me
some
have their
time.
contacts. And that's how I get my contacts. So it's, if you think of a tree and it's branching out, now these guys, and they can vet them for me. So, and instead of me hunting people down, I can have all these guys that I've just shown a good time at a retreat give me their buddies. Right. And then when they call their buddies, they say, hey, I just went on a retreat. This dude, Jack, was crazy, and he was skiing down the mountain with a sip and puff chair.
Or he's water skiing behind a boat.
Skydiving,
Right.
Out of
Amazing.
a helicopter.
Yeah.
So,
He keeps trying to get me to jump out of an airplane. And
Come on, Bill.
a lot of people have. It's amazing to see how many people at the reunion at Granite Ranch, you get the wives, they experience jumping out of a plane, doing a tandem jump. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable.
That's part of what we do down at the ranch down in South Central Texas.
And, you talk about the funding. We're all volunteer force, of course, so we count 100% on donations. Mm-hmm. And it costs an awful lot of money to take 40 people on a retreat twice a year. and then take them all to Granite Ranch, it costs a ton. And so anything that anybody can do, $5 here, $10 there, it's awesome. As you were talking about just a few minutes ago, you can't always find a person that wants to write this humongous check. But if we had a lot of people writing small checks,
Makes a huge difference.
going on our
Huge
website,
difference.
making a donation for $50 or $100, and 10 or 12 of those, and that has paid for one person to go on a retreat.
On our website, it'll tell our whole story and what we do. There is our numerous donate buttons. And
You make it easy for them to find
You
it.
just click
Right.
on that button. You can set it up to where every month $10 comes out of your account, $25.
Can most
Or,
people afford $10 a month? Let's
Hey,
be
that's a
honest.
couple
Sure.
beers, man.
Right?
Yeah.
Of course you can.
Sure.
Now, if we had 500 people doing that,
You can move some more families
There would
and
be a-
take them on
Right.
retreats.
or if you wanted to get specific and sponsor a specific family, which would be more personal for you, that's a great thing to do there. Or you can go on our website and contact us and volunteer. We do a lot of local things where we'll set up a booth. And we're doing the what is that thing in January? We're doing the
On
armed
January 4th, we're doing the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl at TCU.
Yeah. Okay.
And we'll have a booth there, and people can make a donation. If they make a donation, then we'll gladly provide them with a T-shirt or a hat or a wristband or whatever they like.
Give people the ability, and they'll give. A lot of people, we're walking them through what you've been through and what you are doing for these other families. When people hear that, they want to give. They just don't always know who to give or how to give and where to give. And I think when they hear your story, I think it's going to make a difference for them, because a lot of people, when they see how you inspire people and see what y'all go through as a family, that resonates. It makes sense. You want to support somebody? Support Brothers Keepers. They're doing some real stuff for real families that have been through some real ordeals, a lot of things that I don't know anything about, So I get it, and I think a lot of other people will get it too.
Yeah, we're constantly doing, as Jack said, we're doing these small things where we'll meet somewhere. We just recently did a car show event with the Viola family, and helping that charity, that nonprofit, Gold Star Families and things. Recently, we had what we called a Top Golf event. Jack's sister Tammy is also real big with Brothers Keepers, and she had set up an event at Top Golf where one of the interesting things that we found that we could do is, as we were advertising, drawing people to come to Top Golf and donate $75 so that you could have some fun at this activity. We found, how about if you can't make it, why don't you donate $75 or $100 so that we can invite a veteran? Sure. And it was amazing. We paid for 54 veterans to come to that event. Then they didn't have to pay anything. So it worked out really good. And we're really focusing now on getting people to not only make that small donation, but as Jack was talking about before, actually sponsoring an individual or sponsoring a family to go on one of these retreats. And that's a big area that we're focusing on. Already for the March 2020 retreat, we've got 2 Gold Star families that we're looking at. We have a veterans family of 5 that are very interested in going, and we also have a first responder family of 5 that we're looking to attend that retreat in March of 2020. It would really be helpful if people would find it in their heart to finance that for a family or an individual. it would really be great.
Well, Jack, we have truly, truly appreciated you coming, and I appreciate your time. Bill, I appreciate you helping him get here and being a part of what we're doing. Thank you. Now, Bill didn't plan to be on camera. We just kind of threw him on camera because it takes a team to do what they do.
There's another thing I did not tell you. Every quarter, we do a mixer.
Okay.
And at the Twilight Lounge down in by downtown Fort Worth there.
212 Liscum in Fort Worth.
And they let us come in, and what we do at the mixer is I will invite a family that has been on a retreat, and they will come in and they'll do a testimonial about their experience and how it helped them and the impact it had on them. And you know, we have a few cocktails and have a good time. And then we also find a local charity group, and we will give them money. We'll cut them a big old check, one of them big checks. Yeah. And we give back in that capacity. So, and every quarter we find a different outfit
to give back to,
group, organization that does something neat. The last one was
Metro
Ministries. They help children.
Okay.
And they help children in the Fort Worth area that are struggling, and we give them a little money, and so it's a pretty neat evening. And we do that every quarter. We'll probably do the next one in February or March timeframe. But
and that's all calendared events on your website. Everybody can find and see those events when they go to brothers-keepers.org. So you can take a look and see all the events that they're working on and what they're doing and all the families they're helping. If you'd like to get involved and would like to help them with some donations, it would be huge. They do some things that not a lot of people do. They focus on the families of the veterans and the wounded veterans, and they put the team in and they put the team first. So I really, really appreciate y'all coming. Man, I appreciate your service. I appreciate your service.
Thank you.
Two retired vets. You know, that's a big
right.
deal. So, man, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Absolutely.